I just want to return to the question of community healthcare services and the teams in our community that, as you say, Taoiseach, will allow people to access care without being hospitalised. Now, it's not over a week ago, along with my constituency colleagues, we took topical issues, very unsatisfactory responses from the government. In fact, on this issue of community healthcare in Drimna, we had Malcolm Noonan instead of any representative of the Health Department. Malcolm, as people know, is from the Housing Department. And the whole issue about the removal of public health nursing services from the Drimna area due to staff shortages has created a huge upset in that area, and it relates specifically to what previous deputies have talked about in terms of needing to keep local services local. And in Drimna, the population is expanding rapidly and will continue to expand. But not only have they removed the nursing services from the area, the community has also been massively disappointed, waiting since 2013 for a healthcare service to be built in the area, and it's not going to happen till the end of next year. Can you please address some of those problems?
So just in relation to the individual queries, I'm sure these are very difficult cases, and if deputies want to pass on the details to my office or the relevant minister, we'll try to provide a reply, but it's not really possible in this forum to respond to individual cases, because there's always much more to it than can be put across in a minute or two by a deputy, and we need to know all the facts. Just in relation to the Sláintecare programme, which is our programme to bring about universal healthcare in Ireland, it really has three principles. First is affordable healthcare for everyone. Second is good patient outcomes, and the third is timely access, making a lot of progress around making healthcare more affordable. I mentioned some examples in my reply earlier. Patient outcomes in Ireland are good, much better than in the NHS, for example, which is often used as a model to follow. It definitely isn't. Where we're not doing well is on timely access, and that's where we need to make a lot of progress, or a lot more progress in the next year or so. In terms of Sláintecare, it has the support and oversight of the Department of the Taoiseach, and that's being enhanced at the moment. When it comes to the Sláintecare programme, there's now a report every 2 months to me as chairman of the Health Committee, or the Cabinet Committee on Health, and also one of my advisors and one of my officials now sits on the Sláintecare Delivery Board. In terms of community care, which was raised by deputies, we're working very closely with Minister Butler on this. The problem that we would have had 5 or 10 years ago was that we had the staff but not the money. It's now the reverse. We have the money but not the staff, in large part due to full employment. And we are working on means to increase the number of people who we can get working in home care and in community services, and that includes increased pay, increased terms and conditions, the payment of the living wage, the payment of people during the travelling time as they travel from client to client, and also 1,000 new work permits to bring care staff into the state. On Macroom, don't have any information on that, but we'll take it up with the deputy and come back to him with a reply once I have one. On the assessments of needs, I think I have to say, talking to professionals in the area in particular, the assessment of need process has become a real difficulty. I think when the right to an assessment of need was introduced by the Oireachtas, it was done for all the right reasons, but it has now become a barrier because children can't get the therapies they need until they've had their assessment of need completed. And a full assessment of need takes, I'm told, 20 or 30 hours. So that's become a barrier in itself. And there was an abridged system brought in that would do shorter assessments of needs, or rolling assessments of needs, and that meant that children were getting the therapies much quicker and waiting lists were coming down. But the court struck that down and said that everyone has to have a full assessment of need. And that's created an enormous problem, unfortunately. I think we need to look at that and revisit it and see how best we can sort it out, because it shouldn't be the case that someone who clearly needs speech and language therapy, and a 1-hour assessment can determine that, can't get it until they've gone through a 20 or 30-hour full assessment. And it is an example of how rights-based legislation can backfire. An honest attempt to give people a right has now put us in a situation where that right has become a barrier to the treatment they need. Just in relation to the 900,000 people on hospital waiting lists, that is true, but it's not the full truth. A lot of those people are waiting a few weeks, maybe 6, 10 weeks, It also includes people waiting annual checks, and you can wait up to a year for an annual check. In fact, you have to wait at least a year for an annual check. It includes duplicates. It includes people who have been treated already and people who are suspended from waiting lists for various different reasons. In the Sáinte Care programme, we agreed good criteria around waiting lists, and that was that nobody should have to wait more than 10 weeks to see a specialist and no more than 12 weeks for a procedure that they need. And when you use that figure, there's about 450,000 people waiting longer than they should have to, but that figure has come down. It was actually lower at the end of last year than it was the year before, and there's very few jurisdictions that have seen their waiting times go down. Ours has, and we have a target to bring it down further this year, and it's great to see some progress on that. Far too high, far too long, but one of the very few countries that is seeing its waiting times fall, and that's N22 versus N21, and will fall again this year. And we're doing it both through expanding public capacity and also by using the NTPF as a source of additional capacity. On recruitment, everyone knows that recruitment in the health service is an enormous challenge. We have full employment, we have enormous international competition. Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, they're short too. That's why they're bringing in staff from abroad, including from Ireland. And also the housing crisis doesn't help. But I do think it's important that we put into a factual context. Since this government came to office, we've hired an extra 7,000 nurses, midwives, doctors, dentists. We've never had more GPs with HSE contracts. We've never had more nurses working in our public health service. We've never had more consultants working in our public health service. That, of course, is against the backdrop of a rising population and increasing medical need. But we shouldn't give in to this false narrative, which would have people believe that we have fewer nurses and fewer doctors because they're all leaving. The facts are otherwise. There are people coming and going, and in the round, we've never had more staff in our health service, and the numbers are increasing every day. And we have an extra 6,000 that we're going to hire this year. Just in reimbursement, just to say, met with the HSE CEO, the new one for the first time yesterday. We did discuss reimbursements. The deputy was on my mind at the time, and he did say to me that only in the past couple of weeks they've approved a huge number of additional medicines, new molecules and new indications. But we agreed that we'd make it a specific item for discussion at the next subcommittee meeting or the one after, because we do acknowledge that we need to speed up the reimbursement process for medicines in Ireland. But one thing that was said back to me, and I think it's a fair point, we always hear about the ones that are approved abroad but not in Ireland. We rarely hear about the ones that are approved in Ireland and not abroad, and I think that was a fair point that was made too.